Hello and welcome to Refurbishing a Vintage Model Steamboat. This is part 17, painting the inside of the hull and strengthening some of the joints. This hull is very old and it was soft soldered together in the first place, and over the years some of the joints have become a little bit weak, so I need to strengthen them. And I cannot strengthen them by resoldering because that would burn the paint off, so I'm going to use a different method. But the first thing to do is to thoroughly paint the inside of the hull. And the paint that I'm using is exterior grade white paint. This should be pretty good, and it should stop any ingression of water, and better still, it should stop any rust from forming inside the hull. And by way of a change, to alleviate the boredom of painting, here are some parts that I bought to complete the job. This is going to be one of the last jobs on the boat. I don't want to repair the handrail stanchions and then knock them off while I fit the engine. As you can see here, there are two sets of Caldercraft 3-hole handrail stanchions. And I also bought some 1mm wire. This brass wire that is straight is quite expensive. The one on the coil is not so expensive, so I figured as the sides are straight and the stern is curved, I would use a combination of the two to get the job done. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologise to my regular viewers for the gap in the continuity of this series. I will briefly explain what has happened. First of all, I was redecorating my recording studio, which was long overdue and it took longer than I thought. Then my wife needed an office at the front of the building, and when I looked at that, it was riddled with woodworm, so I tore the floor up and replaced the floor. Then a friend of mine was terminally ill, and I had to go and visit him because he was dying, and he finally died, which was very sad, but we all meet the Grim Reaper in the end. And coupled with my problem, which is high blood sugar, which I'm currently controlling, by modifying my diet completely and doing more exercise and losing weight. In fact, I've lost over a stone since the last episode. Once I figure out this blood sugar thing, I'm going to make a video about it, how to control your own blood sugar without taking drugs. Well, that's about it for disasters. I don't think anything else has happened since the last episode, so it's now back to the boat. Here you can see the boat on the bench, surrounded by mess as usual. I like some chaos in my life. Anyway, on with the renovation. This stuff is called Milliput. It's a 2-pack epoxy putty. I've described it before, and I describe it in detail in one of the episodes of my DVD set, How to Build a Model Steam Launch. Milliput is really good stuff. It's a 2-pack epoxy putty, and when you mix it together, apply it and let it harden, it's incredibly strong. There are lots of applications for Milliput. I would suggest that you Google Milliput and have a look at the applications. I didn't buy this Milliput from Blackgates Engineering, like I normally buy parts from there, because they don't sell it. I bought this from the popular auction site that we all know and love. And it's really good stuff to use. I can't sing its praises highly enough. In this clip, I'm showing how I mix it together. I break off an even amount of each of the sticks, and then with my hand knead them together until they are thoroughly mixed. Before using this stuff though, I do recommend that you read in detail the instructions on the box, the how to and what not to do with this stuff. I do it this way, and I'm just showing how I do the job. I'm not recommending that you do it this way. You should really wear some sort of PPE, personal protective equipment, to stop contamination of your body with the Milliput. And whichever way you decide to do it, always wash your hands thoroughly at least twice after using this stuff. That's what I've done. I'm 64 years old and I haven't died of Milliput poisoning yet, and I've used so much of it over the years. But it is nasty stuff. It may even be carcinogenic, which means it's very nasty stuff, so do take care. Use some plastic gloves and don't touch the stuff if you can help it. What I'm doing here is rolling out a very thin line of Milliput. The easiest way to do it is to do it between two pieces of wood, because it gives a nice, smooth, even finish, and also you don't have to touch it. Take your time with this and get the roll even all the way along. Otherwise, when you apply it to the boat, it will be lumpy in some places and thin in others. This clip shows me filling an aerosol paint can top with some water, and the water is to smooth the Milliput out. Before Milliput cures, it is soluble in water, so you can smooth out the surface of the Milliput just by using some water. Once again, try and insulate your finger from the Milliput. Here you see me using the Milliput in practice, and you can see how there is a gap between this top rail and the hull. So this rolled out piece of Milliput, when it's pressed into position, is going to securely hold these two parts together. If I don't do this, then there are going to be problems. I always do the renovations that you see on here as though I was doing them for myself, not just to do them randomly for people and get them out of the way. At the moment, I'm wondering if my life expectancy is going to be long enough to allow me to finish this boat. I mean, the amount of coats of paint I gave it, I think I used about 3 coats of paint, and then I had to leave it a week in between. So it's just as well that I've had a fairly disastrous month doing other things like killing woodworm and things like that. Oh yes, I almost forgot I had to have 2 new radiators as well, and I caught a cold. That's enough about me. It's time to carry on with the boat. Here's a piece of Milliput going in on the other side. It's easier to see this because the camera's actually pointing at it. I will be levelling this off with a steel ruler before I finish it. The water makes it very smooth indeed. You get a great finish. The weakest part of the boat by far is where the deck meets the hull. So all the way round I'm putting these fillets of Milliput. I'm being very careful not to get Milliput all over the porthole. There's just enough room above the porthole for it to stick to both the hull and the piece of metal deck edging that goes all the way round. If you're doing a job like this, there's something to beware of. Underneath the deck, it could be sharp. What I've done, it's not on the video, but I had a quick feel around underneath the deck to make sure there were no sharp pieces in there. And thankfully there aren't, and I still have all 9 of my fingers. This is a very tedious episode, and I'm well aware of it, and that's why I'm speaking about other things, like woodworm and diabetes and things like that. At the moment I'm rolling out another piece of Milliput, and as you can see it's about 1/4 of an inch thick, or 6 millimeters thick, and here I'm putting this round the stern part of the boat. Almost all of this stern deck section is only loosely attached to the hull itself. Here are a few notes about applying the Milliput. First of all, I push it into position very, very firmly, but then what happens is it starts to drag, so I dip my thumb in the water and smooth it all out. And I'm trying not to take my thumb off on the sharp edge of the metal. That would not be good, and the blood would not be good, but it would of course stay in the hull because the hull is very, very waterproof. So what I'm doing now is working my way around the hull. In the end I did most of the hull. This is the stern part, and you can see the principle is exactly the same for all of it. I don't really know why I'm showing quite so much of it. But the boat's looking good, and you can see how much effort's gone into it. I'm quite looking forward to subsequent episodes because we're nearly at the stage where I can fit the whole thing together. It's pointless fitting bits and pieces and having to remove them to do this job, so the hull is still very much an empty hull. But in the next episode, I will definitely be fitting some components into the hull. The weakest part of the structure was the midships section. This really was weak, and I used quite a lot more Milliput on this, and I went all the way around and right into the bow. You can see what I mean, the metal is moving as I'm putting the Milliput in place. Finally though, when the Milliput has cured, this will be very, very strong, and I don't think it'll ever come away from the hull at all. And there's certainly no chance of this boat ever doing a Titanic impression. The centre section of the superstructure support is also quite weak, so I'm using Milliput on that as well. Once it's painted it will look okay. It looks a bit poor at the moment because it's a different colour. When it's all painted white, and of course it is inside the boat, it will be okay, and it will be a very strong job. As I mentioned previously, this is a bit of a tedious episode, but it is essential that the whole thing is strong. Even the superstructure is quite heavy. This entire boat is made from metal. There are some wood parts, but they're only cosmetic. To finish off this episode, now for something completely different. This is a Stuart Models hand pump, and this is the one I'm going to be using because it was the one that was originally fitted to the boat. So on the next episode, I have to figure out a way of drilling to put this in a totally different position to where it was originally. I will give it some thought. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.